Our Father God, as we come into your presence, as we come before your throne, and we come to hear you speak, Lord, give us your Spirit. May he dwell in our hearts and in our minds and reveal spiritual truths through your Spirit, that we may understand what we read and hear. And Lord, without your Spirit, without you revealing these things, my words are empty and our minds don't comprehend. And so we need your help today, as we do every Sunday. So be with us as we look at your word, in Jesus' name. Amen. There are figures in history who are close to pure evil in one way or another, for they have done despicable things. And we don't have to go back far in our world to note some of these. These are pretty obvious ones to you. You've heard of Hitler and Stalin and Idi Amin, Pol Pot, and even Putin now. We know some of the things they have done. But last week, we were introduced to Antiochus Epiphanes IV, who was in many ways insignificant to world history. He reigned for just a decade, from 175 to 164 BC. He was a nobody in many ways. His achievements were not great. The armies he led were not particularly victorious. In fact, he reigned over the demise of the Greek Empire and was there toward the end when the Roman Empire came on the scene. This is him. Why then does Daniel 11 dedicate 14 or more verses to this one figure who is so insignificant in history? What is it about Antiochus IV that is worthy of mention? It is because Antiochus Epiphanes IV involved Israel in his war plans. Most of the other rulers, whether they were the ruler of the south or the ruler of the north, simply ignored Israel. Sometimes they stormed through, but that was on the way to a bigger and more important battle. But Antiochus Epiphanes IV, no, he made his battle with Israel. He went much further. And so I'm going to ask you, let's see what he did. Would you turn in your Bibles to page 770, if you're not there already. Daniel chapter 11. Daniel chapter 11, I'm going to pick it up from verse 29. Daniel chapter 11, you'll need a Bible. If you haven't got a Bible, just wave your hand. I'll get David, there's a couple of people there, would you just grab a Bible for them behind you, mate? Got a few there. Okay, it's really important that you have it in front of you if you're going to look and understand what we're talking about. Chapter 11, verse 29. Let me read that for you. At the appointed time, he, Antiochus IV, will invade the south again, but this time the outcome will be different from what it was before, from the rest of the earlier chapter. Ships of the western coastlands will oppose him, and he will lose heart. Then he'll turn back and vent his fury against the Holy Covenant. He'll return and show favor to those who forsake the Holy Covenant. See, Antiochus IV set out to invade Egypt once again, but this time the plan did not occur in the way he wanted it to occur. The invasion did not go ahead because as he went down, ships from the western coastland, a fleet of ships came, and we think these are the first Roman ships to invade the area. And for the first time, Roman forces were in play. Within 25 years, Rome would be the dominant military force in all of the north and the south and the western area. In fact, over most of what you'd call a civilized, I can't say that, over that whole area. Anyway, put it that way. Antiochus is enraged because out of the blue, his plans were thwarted by a force he had never thought about. He was on the way to attack Ptolemy, and then Rome comes and destroys his ambition. And he is furious. He is furious. And so he turns to Israel and to Jerusalem. What did he do when he got to Jerusalem? Well, verse 31. His armed forces will rise up to desecrate, vandalize the temple fortress, and abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. With flattery, he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant. But the people who know their God will firmly resist him. Why Antiochus Epiphanes IV has so much written about him is because he defied the living God. He desecrated or vandalized, if you want to use that word, the temple which God dwelt in. And the first thing he did was abolish the daily sacrifice. The sacrifice of a lamb in the morning at dawn and then at twilight in the afternoon was there to atone for sin. It was there as the way to bring forgiveness to the people. And by getting rid of it and destroying it or taking it away, there is no way for forgiveness of sins to occur. And if that was not bad enough, he then went up one further and set up an abomination that causes desolation. And he set up, as written by the Jews of that time in 1 and 2 Maccabees, the god of Zeus in the temple. Where God would have met with his people, there was this pagan god. Thirdly, Antiochus worshipped this god by sacrificing a pig on the altar, an unclean animal where the proper sacrifice for sin should be made. He brought sin into the temple, he made the temple unclean, and he made a mockery of the worship of Yahweh. That is what he did. And verse 32 says, those who were loyal to God would rise up and resist him firmly. Antiochus and his whole army, but this uprising from the faithful Jews would not have a good outcome. Have a look at verse 33. Those who are wise will instruct many, though for a time they will fall by the sword, or be burned, or captured, or plundered. When they fall, they will receive a little help, and many who are not sincere in their faith will join them. Some of the Jews lost their lives defending the temple and standing firm for Yahweh. Others who were insincere joined them, and it was a diabolical mess. It seemed like the end was near. The end of Judaism was going to come. And Antiochus' forces were very great, especially compared to the Jews. But God tells us why all of this happened. Verse 35. Some of the wise, the faithful Jews, will stumble, so that they will be refined, purified, and made spotless until the time of the end, for it will still come at the appointed time. The way that the faithful Jews stood firm and were then refined was be through fire, and that fire would be Antiochus Epiphanes IV. On April the 2nd, 2015, in a university at a place called Garissa, which is to the east of Nairobi in Kenya, Islamic gunmen stormed the university. Some of you may remember this. I don't know if you remember this. But anyway, what happened was gunmen early in the morning came in and stormed the university. And what they did was that they attacked Christians. And well, people particularly, anybody, but they would particularly attack Christians. They'd say, are you of an Islamic faith or are you of a Christian faith? And if the person said they're Christian, they'd shoot them in the head and move on. One bloke thought he'd get around this by saying, oh, I'm Muslim, I'm Muslim. And they said, recite this prayer. And when he couldn't, they shot him in the head. That morning they came across a prayer group and they shot all of them. 29 were killed, 100 or more others were injured in that attack. In 164 BC, the cost of standing firm for what you believe was very high. One faithful Jew after another faithful Jew lost their lives as they defied, that was of the university. The one faithful Jew after another lost their lives as they defied Antiochus Epiphanes IV. I wonder if you were faced with a gunman who had held a gun to your head and said, Christian or Muslim, what would you say? The cost that day for those Christian university students in Kenya was very high. The cost of being refined will leave scars as some of them survived. The cost of following Jesus sometimes means putting it all on the line to say, I'm with Jesus. I mean, Jesus himself said these words, did he not? If you want to be my disciple, you must deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. That is why so many verses are attributed to Antiochus Epiphanes IV. He was the one who defied the living God, made a mockery of the worship of Yahweh, and you would think, wouldn't you, that God is going to go, zap, bang, you're gone. But the text goes in a completely different direction. Have a look at verse 36. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god. He will say unheard of things against God, the God of gods. He'll be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. He'll show no regard for the gods of his ancestors, or the ones desired by women, or the regard the God, or regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortresses, a god unknown to his ancestors. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. He will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god, and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many people and will distribute land at a price. At that time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and a great fleet of ships. He will invade countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land, that is Israel. Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. He will gain control of the treasuries of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt with the Libyans and Cushites in submission. But reports from the east and north will alarm him, and he will set out in a great rage to destroy and annihilate many. He'll pitch his royal tents between the sea and the beautiful mountain, that is Israel, that is Jerusalem particularly, and he will come to his end, and no one will help him. How do you read these verses? How do you read these verses? Now, the usual way of reading a whole passage is that you continue on with the subject that you've been talking about. And because the king's end doesn't come to the final verse in verse 45, many people think that these verses now are all about Antiochus Epiphanes IV, how he continues to defy the living God and put himself as God, and so on and so on. Why wouldn't he be the subject? Well, the problem with these verses is that they are not recorded in history of the 2nd century. The things said here don't correspond to any history ever. Certainly not at that time or any time. It suggests that Antiochus IV is not in view. Some scholars start looking for other people who might fit the description, and so we get people such as the Roman Empire fitting the bill, or some will say it's the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church, or some will say it's Muhammad and Islam, some will say it's Napoleon, and you can get all sorts of people saying all sorts of things. The problem with suggesting any other world figure from the pages of history is that no history lines up. If you look at all the sources of history, none of them lines up with what is being said here from verse 36 onwards. That means we must look for someone else. Let's look again at verse 36. Notice here, as I read it out, just the first line, the king will do as he pleases. Notice for the first time, this ruler, this king, is referred to as the king. Throughout this chapter, it has always been the king of the north or the king of the south. The king of the north, the king of the south, the king of the south, the king of the north, and all of a sudden we get the king. Look at verse 40 with me. Look at verse 40. At that time of the end, the king of the south will engage him, this new the king, in battle. And the king of the north will storm out against him, this new king, with chariots and so on. The king of the north and south engaged this third king. We're right to think this is a new king, somebody else. However, as we know, it's not a historical king. When we read the character of this king, verse 36 onwards says, he will exalt himself above every god. He will say unheard of things against the God of heaven. He will show no regard to the gods that were his ancestors, whatever that's supposed to mean. He will honor a god of fortresses or a god of war. That is remarkably similar when we go to the New Testament. And Paul says there is a cosmic figure called the man of lawlessness. Let me read it to you. He, the man of lawlessness, will oppose and exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped. So that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. There is remarkable similarity between these two descriptions. And so I want to now come to a conclusion that this other king, the king, not the king of the north, not the king of the south, but the king, is actually a demonic force at work, not a human being. See, there's no historical correlation that you can say this is a human being. So I take it as either the work of a demon, it's the work of Satan, it is the work of the Antichrist, but that's reading back in the New Testament to the Old Testament, or even the man of lawlessness, again reading the New Testament back into the Old Testament. However you describe this king, and I'm not committed to any one of those, the fact remains he works for Satan. So why is it written like this? Why does it seem that it's actual history? He will do this, and this army will do this, and this army will do this. Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and this is sheer speculation, right? I don't think much rides on this, so even though your alarm bell should be going off, they don't have to ring that loudly because I don't really care whether you think this is true or not. I'm having a go at taking a guess. Why is it written like this? I haven't read this but I've only read enough, a little bit. But I think the description in verses 36 to 45 has the feel of real life events like the rest of chapter 11, because this demonic evil king will cause havoc in the real world. He will wage war against humanity. Now, the events described literally in chapter 11 at the end here may not be actual events. So that's what I'm saying. But they have the character of real war, real conflict, real suffering, real death. And what is that? That is the work of Satan, none other, is it not? To stir up pain and suffering and everything like that. That is the work of Satan. I don't think these verses are talking about 2nd century BC. There's my speculation. Verse 40 says these things occur at the time of the end. So let's go to the end. Let's go to verse 45. He, this king, this evil being, maybe a demon or Satan himself, will pitch his royal tents between the seas at the beautiful holy mountain Jerusalem, yet he will come to his end and no one will help him. Verse 1 of chapter 12. At that time, Michael, the great prince who protects your people, will arise. There will be a time of distress such as not has happened from the beginning of nations until then. Notice Satan or his king will come to an end. That's what I'll put here. Satan or his king or the king will come to an end. That is, he will be destroyed forever. It is significant that Satan is defeated. And friends, you need to know this. You are on the winning side. You are on the winning side. If you get nothing else from what I'm saying today, if nothing else of the details goes into your head today, I want you to just hang on to this one truth. You are on the winning side because you belong to Jesus. That's really important. With all the chaos that is going around, you win. But before this end, there'll come a time of distress. There will be a time of great distress. That's what verse 1 says. It's often called the Great Tribulation. And I reckon, and I know many people will disagree with me with this one, you're free to disagree because this is, again, my opinion. We live in it right now. We are in a period of life where there is great danger. And I'm saying this period has gone from the resurrection of Jesus and will finish on the last day when he returns. We're in this tribulation. Occasionally, the danger is so severe that it will take our life. Just like those students in Garissa, in Kenya. But mostly, the more likely is the danger is more sinister, far more sinister and subtle. Every day, around the world, people give up their faith. Every day, around the world, people give up their faith. Since the 1950s, studies have been done across the Western church. I'm talking about the first world. I'm not talking people in the West. I'm just talking about the first world church has declined every decade from the 1950s since World War II to the point we have right now. That is the story of the church in the West. See, 70 years ago, Christianity was socially acceptable, admirable, even praiseworthy. You know, my job as a minister was a noble one. You wouldn't believe this. If you were caught speeding as a minister, as a church minister, they would let you off because they respected you. Those days are gone, aren't they? In 2023, Christians are now seen as the enemy of society. They're the enemy of what is good. They are the enemy of what is right and what the enemy of where society is going. Many see religion, and particularly Christians, as the source of all the problems in the world, and so they despise us. In such a world of distress, remaining a Christian is a battle. And friends, make no mistakes, the consequences are eternal. If you are a Christian and you lose your life, like those students in Kenya, with their families grieving, with those who have just viciously taken their lives because of what they stand for, it is horrible. Let me not make light of that. It is horrible. But each one of those students are now in heaven. But if you give away your faith, you will still die, but you'll go to hell. That's a stark reality, isn't it? Jesus said these words, his words. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world? Oh, what did I do there? Gain the whole world and yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for his soul? The great battle is with Satan, or this evil king, whatever you want to call him, and it's right now, and he wants your soul. I cannot make it any clearer than that this morning, friends. To give up your faith is worse than death. I'll say it again, because that's a really important line. I want you to look at me. To give up your faith is worse than death. That's the reality. Now, why do I say that? Have a look at verse 2. Have a look at verse 2. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. Friends, here is the clearest explanation of the resurrection in all the Old Testament. In all the Old Testament. There are cryptic statements elsewhere, and if you have a turn over your outline and look at the back of your outline, you will see all the list of references to the resurrection I can think of. And Chris, if you can think of anything else about the resurrection, come and tell me. In fact, if anybody else knows any other parts of the Bible, of the Old Testament, talk about the resurrection, please come and tell me. I'd like to add them to my list. But here in Daniel 12, did you notice that at the resurrection, every single person will live again, both the righteous and the unrighteous? Every single person will rise from the dust. Every single person will be given a new body. Every single person will stand before the God for judgment. You know, there is a view that goes around. Here's a view that's out there in society, that at the end of your life, if you do not believe in God, you simply end. You just finish. It's called annihilation. And what happens is at your death, your soul just simply goes away and is no more, and your body rots in the ground with worms eating it, and then that's it. That's kind of a nice way, if you think there's any nice way to go about eternity for someone who doesn't believe. It's kind of a nice thing to think for the non-Christian. But friends, verse 2 says it is wrong. It is heresy. It is a lie spread by demons, by the evil one, because he knows his fate. You know, in Bible study a couple of weeks ago, we were looking at a verse from the Bible where demons confront Jesus, and we read these words. Oh, sorry, that's the resurrection. What do you want with us, Son of God? These demons shouted. Have you come to torture us when before the appointed time? The demons know there is a hell and that is their eternal destiny. They know what is at stake for those who give up their faith. But not so with you, brothers and sisters. I want you to know your fate, the fate of a Christian. So we need to look at the book and the resurrection. You need to know the good news in all this chaos about you. Look at the way Daniel describes you. About 2/3 of the way through verse 1, where it says, but at that time, can you see it there? Verse 1, 2/3 of the way through. But at that time, your people, Daniel, the Jews, the people of God, everyone whose name is found written in the book of life, will be delivered. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will arise, some to everlasting life. As Christians, you will be raised from the dead and given a new body so that you can enter heaven forever. Your name is written literally in a book that cannot be erased. It's written there by God. Your name is written in the book of life. And you'll be given a new body. A body that will never die, a body that doesn't have disease, a body that doesn't have pain. There is no more sin, there is no mourning, there is no more anything that's bad about this world. In your new body, it will not be there. This is the body, brothers and sisters, that you will be given. You'll be made ready for a life with God forever, with your brothers and sisters that have stood firm to the end. And there's one more characteristic that describes you now, verse 3. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Those who are wise, and that's talking about you, will shine like the sun. Now, I don't know if you've ever looked at the sun. You shouldn't, but it's bright. And if you lead people to Jesus and to righteousness and to a right standing with God and to salvation, like the twinkling on a black velvet night, that's you. You shine like the stars. Well, that's kind of the end. Let me finish off with Daniel himself very quickly. Look at verse 4. But you, Daniel, roll up the seal and the words of the scroll until the time of the end. Many will go there, here and there, to increase knowledge. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there before me were two others, one on the bank of the river and one on the opposite bank. One of them said to the man clothed in linen who was above the waters, that incredible angel, how long will it be before these astonishing things are fulfilled? The man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the river lifted his right arm and then his left toward heaven, and I heard him swear by him who stands forever, it will be for time, times, and half a time, when the power of the holy people has been finally broken, all these things will be completed. The answer's not very satisfying, is it? When will it happen? After time, times, and half a time. Again, I have no idea really what this, but I'm going to guess. The best guess of commentary comes up with is, there's many other guesses, but this is the one I'll deal with. Let's say that time equals 1, times equals 2, plural. The third time, I'm calling 3 at the moment, is half a time. Maybe it is saying, and I'm only saying maybe, you can tell me if you don't agree with this one, that time will progress in its normal way, the first, then the second, but in the third, it will be cut short. It will progress normally, but then cut short. Does that help you? Do you understand? Not really. Well, Daniel didn't either. Look at verse 8. I heard all this, but did not understand. So I asked, my Lord, what will be the outcome of all this be? So he wants to know the end result. He replied, go your way, Daniel, because the words are rolled up and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified and made spotless and refined, but the wicked will continue to be wicked. None of the wicked will understand, but those who are wise will understand. From the time that the daily sacrifice is abolished, the abomination that causes desolation There will be 1,290 days. Blessed is the one who waits for and reaches the end of the 1,335 days. As I've mentioned, there will be a time of distress. There will be the refining of God's people, and it will hurt. I don't need to say anything more about that, but the end result will be wonderful. The 1,290 days are 3.5 years, but I have no idea about the 1,335 days. I'll be really honest about that. The basic idea is that God's people will have to wait a little longer. 1,290 is 3.5 years, but then a little bit more. And whatever you want to say about 45 days, it's not a long period of time. Basically, after all of that, we're no closer to understanding when the end will come. And Jesus said the same thing. I do not know it either, only the Father in heaven. And that's where we should leave it to. And so the last verse is about Daniel and his destiny. And because nothing more needs to be said, I'm going to simply read it to you. As for you, Daniel, go your way till the end. You'll rest, and then at the end of your days, you'll rise to receive your allotted inheritance. Is that not a great way to finish our series on Daniel? Not only him, but all who stand firm to the end. Amen. Amen.